Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Ran. In this channel, I share knowledge and practical techniques on trauma healing and everything about mental health. So this video also is going to be about fear of abandonment. Normally, when we are triggered of fear of abandonment, for example, people's behavior changes, a delayed response, or rejection, maybe a change of frequency in connecting. Just everything that triggers our nervous system to go into this hyper-vigilant state triggers us to behave in a uncontrollable way. Maybe we start to have those flashback images, we start to have those intrusive thoughts that we just cannot seem to shut down. And we have the stories ongoing in our mind, going like, well, this person said that and this person did this. I wanted to make them to change their behavior. I wanted to connect with them. I wanted to remedy the situation so that I can feel safe and I can feel that I'm not being abandoned. So today I wanted to talk about how to drop the story and take the power back, how to bring your consciousness toward yourself so that you feel a sense of control, self-empowerment, and self-agency, which may make you finally realize that it has nothing to do with this person, it has nothing to do with the story, who said this, who did that. It has everything to do with your determination to take on your own healing. There are three aspects that contribute to the formation of fear of abandonment, which is due to insecure attachment styles. The first one is attachment bond break. This could mean that the mother isn't really responsive to the child's needs. Maybe the lack of eye contact, the lack of petting, the lack of positive mirroring, which means that maybe the baby is crying and is uncomfortable, but the mother isn't taking the patience or emotional empathy towards the baby, while treats the baby with this brutal negative attitude, making the baby not feel safe, making the baby feel like its life is at stake. And this could cause the baby to have this attachment hunger because it's not being met. The basic needs to survive is not being met. Or maybe the mother isn't available at all. Maybe she abandoned the child, or maybe she passed away. In any sort of way, there's an abrupt bond breaking and leading the child to seek consistently for this kind of reassurance, compulsively seeking for connection with whatever it symbolizes as the love from a mother. The second aspect is dysfunctional upbringing, meaning that this child grows up in an unhealthy household dynamic. Maybe she or he wasn't getting enough sufficient care or love, or this child gets chronically neglected or abused. And it really prohibits the child form a healthy sense of self. It causes the child to lack boundary because she or he hasn't seen the best model to form healthy boundaries within herself or with other people. Maybe abandonment actually happens. This child gets tossed around among family members like unwanted goods. So this child is scared to experience that feeling ever again. The third aspect is getting excluded and alienated in social settings like primary school, like high school, because when they start to have this awareness of self, others' inclusion of them, others' acceptance towards those children will significantly impact feelings towards themselves. When they're accepted, they feel like they're wanted and they're loved. But if they're treated as if they're different, as if they're weird, or they just couldn't fit in, when they're not getting this positive social interactions, it also causes them to be scared of this disconnection. All of which, what I just mentioned, can cause this child growing up have this profound scare towards being abandoned, towards being disconnected, towards being isolated. Because every tiny trigger that slightly resemble the past events, resemble the feeling of being left alone, they would overact to the situation, even though it's not overreacting to them at all. It's truly that scary, it's truly that triggering. It's like they cannot live another day. Things become out of control for them, both on a body and mind level. On the mind level, they would constantly experience this intrusive thoughts they just cannot seem to shut down. And on the body level, they would experience those uncontrollable anxiety. In order to calm ourselves down, we would try to engage and analyze this story. We would try to take actions. We would try to take actions towards the other person to make them change, to make them behave in a way that we want them to, so that we could feel safe, so that our anxiety could be soothed. But it's not working because we cannot control other people. In order to avoid the painful emotions, in order to avoid the shame, in order to avoid facing ourselves, we come up with the story to tell ourselves, well, maybe because I said this, maybe because it's something that person did, or maybe because I pushed them away, or maybe because she's scared by me, or whatever. Whatever the story is, our brain would constantly grasp to the storyline to stay connected with the tiny bit of symbol that we deem at the source from our love and nourishment and engagement. So we can do anything but letting those things go. But all of this happens in a subconscious level because our brain is wired that way. The only way to drop the story is to be conscious of it, is to take the power back to ourselves, is to really observe the thoughts, the emotions, without being identified with it. For example, normally when I was triggered of this fear of abandonment, there's great extent of anxiety that I couldn't bear. So I would do anything I can to analyze, to talk myself out of the worry. In order to drop the story, in order to be detached from this thought, from this story that we come up with, I have to really observe myself. I have to label the emotion. Maybe I label it as anxiety. And what does it manifest in my body? Well, I feel this burning sensation. I feel like something is very heavy down in my stomach area, and it's dark, it's black, and its texture is really fuzzy. The energy gets stuck in my stomach area, and I can feel that my hands are sweating, and I can feel that my breath becomes shallow, and I just find it really hard, really painful for me to take a deep breath. And that's a sensation I'm feeling. So I'm just kind of being detached while observing it from a distance, so that I don't get swallowed back into that story. I take a deep breath. I try to be with the emotion and be within the emotion for as long as I could. Normally it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for this emotion to shift. And when I learn that I can endure this emotion, when I stop resisting this emotion and just be there with it, for it to change, for it to morph into something else, it's not scary anymore to me. And it becomes something that I can tolerate. When I become an observer and notice that, well, this emotion actually changes and it actually morphs into something else, I am able to sit there with just a thought, just an anxious thought, just a story, that I'm able to distance myself from it. But sometimes right after this clarity, I would be sucked back to the story again, and I would do this process all over again. I would allow myself to take a deep breath and to sit with those sensations and to witness the emotion and to tell myself, well, it's nothing to be scared of. It's just an emotion. One thing worth noting for is that anxiety is a form of fear. It's like we're scared something will happen, so we become uptight, we become hypervigilant to look for clues that it might happen. But because anxiety is such an uncomfortable feeling, we would try to resist it in any way we could. We would try to distract ourselves, we would try to analyze it, we would try to talk ourselves out of anxiety, which of course doesn't work because what we resist persists. But we need to understand that there's underlying emotion that we're resisting. And this emotion is exactly what we need to heal, which is the sadness, which is the grief over the love, over the connection that we didn't get as child. Personally, normally after I dealt with anxiety, I would sink into sadness, this profound sadness and loneliness, because it was the bottom feeling. It was the thing that I was scared the most, which is to be alone, to be by myself, to not being wanted by anyone, to not being connected to anyone. This feeling almost resembles the fact that I don't exist in somehow, like I don't exist in the world because I don't get acknowledged of my existence, of my value to exist in the world. When you allow yourself to go over this grief process, when you allow yourself to go over this sadness that was never finished when you were children, then the healing work really begins. Normally, a lot of us would stuck at this anxiety level. We would be scared, we would try to analyze the story, we would try to talk to people, we would try to ask people to analyze for us so that we get proof that, well, this person won't leave us. But it's what underneath this interpretation that we need to work on. We need to more for all those years that we spent in healing, instead of being out there, being safely exploring the world. We need to more all this and allow ourselves to move through the grief process. And when we really touch this level, we will be able to be grounded. We will be able to drop the story, because we will realize that, well, it has nothing to do with the story. It has nothing to do how the other person would behave, what they would say, what they would do to us. It's not they that we're craving for. It's the connection, the nourishment, the engagement, the care, love, and attention, everything that we weren't able to get when we were children. The more we try to control someone else, the more we try to get them to change, get them to adapt to ourselves, get them to behave in a way so that we could be okay, the more we are wasting the time and energy that we're supposed to spend in our own healing. The more we practice to drop the story, the more we bring the attention and focus back to ourselves, the more energy that we would be able to devote to healing, and the more results, of course, we're gonna see. Alright everyone, I hope this video is helpful. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you wanted to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.